Hey everybody, it's Teryn at Girlz Ink with another episode of Tatter-a-fact. So today we've got a really special guest. We got a Zoom session. She'll be coming on from where was it? Green Bay, Wisconsin. Jill Ullmer. But before we get to that, we just got a couple announcements. So on our last, was it our last podcast or one of our podcasts where we talked about the OMG needles, we did a little impromptu contest. We were going to give away a box of needles on, pick 3 winners. So we wanted you to go on to that podcast, go into the comments, make a comment about the needles, and we were just going to randomly pick like the 3 best comments. So we did that. So I want to announce the winners. So we got 3 winners, and Kristine Johnson, come on down. But let me read her quote. Congratulations, it's a girl, in parentheses, Z. It's a girl. I imagine this launch being sort of like your baby. Bravo. Another fantastic episode. Thank you. I love that comment. It was cute and creative. See, as simple as that. You can win a box of needles. So Kristine Johnson, if you're listening today, well, I'm sure you are. Why wouldn't you be? You won a box of needles. And then we got Sara Rose. Come on down. So stupid. Sara Rose, and her comment was, love the OMG needles. I love the 1-round liner, number 10, for doing classic powder brows, and the 8-round shader, number 8. She's very particular, Sara Rose. She knows her diameters. The 8-round shader, number 8, I used for a saline removal, exclamation point. They are fantastic, another exclamation point. They have the perfect flow, I told you, and give me great stability with my finger placement and give added confidence. I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for creating these awesome needles. They are also pretty. I love that. So that was a great comment. Thank you, Sara Rose. You won box of needles. And then our last winner was Julia Quintilian. I hope I didn't get it wrong. And her comment was, those cartridges and packaging are beautiful. Yeah, Olivia, do you hear that?
Yeah.
Olivia did it. Congratulations on the launch. Excited to try them. That was our 3rd winner. So thank you, Julia, Sara, and Kristine, for, first of all, listening, downloading Tatter-a-fact, following us, listening us, being loyal listeners. That means the world to us. And thanks for engaging and leaving a comment, and you won a box of needles. So how that's going to work is, Willow, you're going to go on and...
I have already reached out and commented back, and they are getting their needles sent to them soon.
All right, that's Willow. So great contest. We're going to do another little contest today, and with a great little giveaway. So stay with us today. Anything else we want to announce? Nothing else? You want to just get right to it? Because this is a really interesting, this is really going to be an interesting hour. So then let's just get on with it. So my guest today, her name is Jill Ullmer, and she is from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Jill Ullmer, she is one of us. She is a PMU artist, super talented, known her a long time, had a good relationship with her. She's a great girl. After today, you're going to fall in love with her. We all do. But there's something kind of unique about Jill, and that she has put into a course to educate others. And so without any further ado, Jill Ullmer.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes. How you doing, girl?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Yeah. A little exhausted. Had a machine class and then went right into the conference at the PMU Vegas conference for 4 days. We just ended that yesterday, so now I'm here with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have to start off by showing you You were just talking about needles, and I have to tell you,
Oh!
my OMG needles. And I have lots of sizes. I go in all kinds of directions with my sizes. So
Yeah.
they're all different. I love them. I love them. I
Yeah.
love them.
And they're so
everybody
pretty.
should use them.
Yeah, and they're so pretty, right?
The pink side.
I know. Olivia designed that packaging. Yeah. So, oh, that's awesome. So you're loving the needles.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great little
I bought them,
surprise.
right when you launched them. I think I bought them the same day I saw the launch. So, yeah.
Oh, that was a really super fun project. You know, I'm a needle freak, so super fun project and great launch. So thank you for that. That was a nice little surprise.
Yeah. I've also taken your needle in the prick course, and it goes so well with that. So everybody should just jump on board and get right to all those courses because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Your needles in your course are fantastic. I learned a ton from both of them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, one thing I learned at the convention, of course, we had a booth, and you know, I think there was right about 500 people at this conference, and so a lot of people coming up to the booth, they saw the OG needles, and they don't know much about needles. So yeah, and you know, of course, I promoted the course. Go take the course. You know, really needed education. Every PMU and every body tattoo artist really needs. You got to learn and understand the needle and know what needle to choose for different skin types and different results and different effects and all that stuff. So thanks for that little plug on needle in the prick and pulling out your boxes. That's super cool. So let's
not even a paid advertisement. I just I wanted everybody to know that they're great.
Yeah. Well, when I was announcing my winners, I saw that you left the screen, and I'm like, she left. I'm like out of the corner of my eye, like, hey, my peripheral vision. I saw that you left.
Us already.
I'm like, oh my God, she bailed. She doesn't want to do the podcast. She changed her mind. And then you come back and you got a sweatshirt on. And I'm like, oh, okay, she was cold because you didn't have a sweatshirt when we first got on. I'm like, well, okay, she was just cold.
No, yeah.
Okay.
I'm in Wisconsin. It was like 2 days ago, it was 74 degrees, and today it's like 50. So you never know what you're going to get. I have to dress in layers so I can accommodate the ever-changing weather here in the Green Bay.
Yeah,
so
right. Awesome. Yeah, and you got good cheese there too, don't you?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
And the Green Bay Packers.
Who are in London. They're all there in London. They're playing in London. So.
Yeah. Aaron, what's his name? The big
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Well, you know, I'm a Tom Brady fan.
Yeah. I heard he might be. I saw a headline. He might be getting separated.
Well, I think Gisele's pissed off that he didn't retire. That's what I think. So I don't know. I know.
Whatever.
Who knows? Yeah. But anyway, let's get to you. So, you know, how long, why don't you just do like a little 30-second like bio, like introduction of yourself, and then we're going to get right into some really interesting topics.
Sure. So I've been doing permanent makeup for about 5.5 years. I opened up my studio in Green Bay in March of 2017. Prior to that, I was actually in corporate America doing business. I have a business degree, so I was in marketing and sales. And I went to a conference for my disorder, which we're going to talk about, but I went to a conference for it in Dallas, Texas, and there was about 600 people there. I'd never met anybody with my disorder. And I met this wonderful woman named Josie. She was a brow and a lash puller like I was. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, your brows look so great. I couldn't stop staring at them. And she said, well, I had them tattooed. And I immediately started researching getting mine done. And the more I researched it, I knew that I could help so many people through permanent makeup and really fulfill my calling. And that was when I decided to switch gears. And 6 months later, I opened up my studio. So.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, and I think just right there in that little 30 seconds, you just kind of summed up why most of us get into PMU, because it's being of service to people. Sometimes we tattoo eyebrows and eyeliner, you know, lips, you know, to save time in the morning, you know, out of convenience. But there's so many other clients that we service and do our procedures on where it's not times, it's not, you know, because of convenience, or they just want to, you know, wake up and go. It's because of different situations like trichotillomania, alopecia, you know, things like that. I mean, and we go in and we, you know, tattoo eyebrows on them, eyeliner on them, and it's profound. It profoundly impacts them and their life in such a positive way. And we're so proud, right? We're so proud that we provide that service to a lot of different people. And so,
Yes.
right, so your disorder is, well, it's body-focused repetitive behaviors, right?
Yes.
And there's an
Yes.
acronym for that,
Yes.
BFRBs. I always got to
Nailed
look.
it.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
BFRBs. BFRBs, I had to say it a lot, is a little bit of a tongue twister, right?
Little bit.
Yeah, so, but again, it stands for body-focused repetitive behaviors. And
Yes.
included in that is trichotillmania
Yes.
and dermatillmania.
Yes.
Dermatillmania. And there's other disorders that fall under the BFRB umbrella.
Yes.
But those two, trichotillmania and dermatillmania, are the two that affect us as permanent makeup artists. Is that correct?
True. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, because the dermatillomania is the skin, and obviously we're working in the skin, and trichotillomania is the hair. So hair pulling, skin picking. So we're trying to create the look of hair essentially, and we're doing that by working on the skin. So
Right.
derm and trich are two major areas that affect permanent makeup artists in terms of BFRBs.
Yeah. So we have a course, you have a course, understanding the what is the name? Understanding BFRBs. It's on the Girlz Ink Academy, girlzinktraining.com. So you put together a whole course on understanding BFRBs. There's a procedure video in there. I do want to clarify the procedure video is not so much geared towards teaching your needles and your movements and procedure technique per se. I think they may pick up some good little nuggets on how you like to work and stretch and whatnot. But that procedure video is more geared towards you tattooing a trick client and your dialogue and what you experience with skin, or what you may experience with skin, with implantation pigment, going into the skin, and even retaining pigment during the healing process with trick clients. So can you go into that a little bit? What are some of the challenges that a PMU artist may face when working with tattooing on a client with trichotillomania or dermatillomania?
Sure. And before I answer that, I'm going to actually touch a little bit on what you said, Teryn, about how even though there's a procedure in the course, it's not a procedural course per se. That was done strategically because when we're working on trichotillomania and dermatillomania clients, we're working on clients who have a mental health disorder. That's what BFRBs are. They are categorized in the psychology book, the DSM-5, as a body-focused repetitive behavior, which falls on the spectrum of OCD, but it is not OCD. It's on the spectrum, but it's not the same. It's actually classified as an impulse control disorder. And the reality is that as artists, we shouldn't be working on difficult skin and damaged skin, such as what can happen as a result of someone picking or pulling at their skin, unless they have already got some really good experience in working in the skin. So I'm not, on my procedure video, I'm not teaching, like you said, a specific technique or talking about certain needles. I think I mentioned how I like to use, on that client, I was using a 5-round shader, and I do go into that a little bit, and I can also touch on that today. But the reality is that a brand new artist is not going to necessarily, or unless they aren't aware of it, they're probably not seeking out clients with damaged skin. They're trying to, kind of get their bearings straight and build their portfolio. But really, this course is for the artist who is already experienced, is already comfortable with needles, understands color theory, all of the things that are already out there. Of course, maybe they still are going to be doing some fine tuning with their craft, but the reality is that I'm not targeting people in this course who are trying to learn how to do eyebrows.
Exactly.
It's really for people who are looking to be able to help a whole new demographic with utilizing the proper language of BFRBs and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to throw that out there first because you touched on it, and you're exactly right. It has a procedure in it, but it's not a procedural course.
Yeah, but I watched the entire procedure, and it was interesting because you narrate through it.
Yes.
Yeah, you narrate through it, and so it was interesting. No, it's not geared towards learning how to tattoo an eyebrow. But it was just really interesting, Jill, like with your narrating, and they're going to learn like so many little nuggets with that video procedure, because it could have just been a theory course. You could have just kept with theory and explaining BFRBs and proper grammar and everything that you go into, but you elevated the course by filming yourself tattooing a pair of brows on a BFRB client. And so I thought that really elevated the course. So I was glad that you did it, that you do in that course. So I'm glad you clarified that too. It is on the OCD spectrum, but it's not considered OCD. It's considered a mental health issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people with trichotillomania and dermatillomania have OCD or OCD tendencies. I myself do, which ironically can come in handy when we're doing permanent makeup. They're different. So it is classified as an impulse control disorder because it's repetitive, right? It's a body focused repetitive behavior. So we have impulses and repetitive behavior going hand in hand in that case. So that's why it falls on that.
I was going to say, so it's the repetitive part that that puts it on the OCD spectrum, the repetitive, because of course I have some OCD issues as well as anxiety. I deal with a lot of that stuff that I maybe in the last year started speaking openly about. It's like a combination, right? Because you got the impulse and then you got the repetitive order. So, and I think it's really.
You had mentioned before some of the challenges that come up with when we're working on trick clients or derm clients that PMU artists face. I don't think I ever actually answered your question because I was talking about the procedure part. So
let's answer that. So I remember. So it was what challenges can we expect or may experience when trying to implant? Let's start with that first, because there's other challenges that we can experience when they leave us and go off to heal. So so it's kind of a two-part question. So let's start with what are the challenges we can expect to possibly deal with during the procedure, implanting the eyebrows during the procedure with a BFRB client?
So I think the number one thing that I would point out in this, which of course goes into detail in the course, is the skin. So we're working on skin that has experienced trauma. And I understand, and of course PMU artists have worked on clients that have skin trauma in all kinds of capacities. The difference with trichotillomania and dermatillomania is that the trauma isn't like a one-time thing and then it's healing. This is repetitive, right? So we're talking about there was hair pulled out in the brow area, for example, and the hair comes back, but then that hair is probably going to continue to get pulled out. So we're talking about the repetitiveness of the hair pulling, which is causing skin trauma, skin damage.
Can I ask you a question? I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're fine.
What is it? Is it that they're pulling and the bulb, the root bulb, is being removed through the hair follicle? What actually causes the trauma and the damage to skin by pulling out hair? I think I know the answer, but I mean, you're so brilliant and elegant in your answers that I would really like for you to answer that question.
Sure. So the easiest way to answer that is simply the fact that hair has growth cycles, right? So when someone with trichotillomania is pulling out that hair, they're never allowing the hair growth to fully come back before they're pulling it out again, which is causing, when that root comes out, it's damage, damage, damage over and over and over. So by pulling it out without actually allowing the skin to heal first is what's going to continuously cause damage in the same spot. So again, body focused repetitive behaviors, if we just think about it as the word repetitive, 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 it's not only the behavior itself or the action of the pulling, but what's happening to the skin is repetitive. What's happening when that individual is pulling out their eyebrows, and I can attest to this because I have, of course, had my eyebrows tattooed. I'm a brow and a lash puller. The oils on our skin are constantly breaking down that pigment when we're pulling and we're rubbing. We're kind of rubbing, trying to find. So you have to imagine when somebody has trich and that hair has not fully grown back yet in the brow, they're searching for it. They're kind of rubbing in that area to find that little stubble. Imagine if you shave your legs and you have that little stubble. It's like you're trying to get that stuff, and they will find it and they'll pull it out again. And again, that hair is not even grown back. So the skin was already traumatized from the last time it was pulled. It's in the middle of another growth cycle, but it's not done. It's being pulled out again in a lot of cases, not always, but in a lot of cases. It's just repetitive trauma. So that is what I would consider the biggest challenge as a permanent makeup artist. And what that does, that skin trauma, as you know, it makes it harder to implant skin. Color can be affected. The longevity of the tattoo can be affected. You're going to have somebody that's going to come in and they're going to have worked with, their coworker who had their brows done by you and had the best results, but this person has trichotillomania and they might be expecting that same result.
Right.
So as an artist, what I cover in this course is how do you have those conversations and set the biggest component is clear and realistic expectations for that client so that they understand that it's going to be a little bit different.
Right.
The process, the healing process itself is a trigger for pulling even more, what to do in those situations, how to handle it if there's not good retention, all of that kind of stuff.
And, I have a good friend, and we didn't bring this up on the live because it didn't dawn on me, but I do have a good friend that pulls, but in the chin section. And when she sees that it's dark again, I mean, she'll take tweezers and go digging for it. So it's true that maybe a certain percentage don't even wait until they can easily grab it with tweezers or fingers, but they'll just kind of even dig and try to move some skin aside to get in there a little bit and get it, and that can cause even more and cause sores, scabs, even more skin damage. So there's all levels. Right. There's all levels.
When you're pulling, you might not just be pulling up hair, but you might, and causing trauma to the skin, but there could be bleeding.
Oh, yes.
There could be all kinds of things. And with your friend too, sometimes if people are going that far, it could also be a touch of dermatillomania too, which is, skin picking. And again, that topic is also really covered in the course. There are a lot of people who have both dermatillomania and trichotillomania. And even though the three most common areas are scalp, brows, and lashes for pulling, but the reality is if someone has trich, they might pick any hair or pull at any hair on their body.
Anywhere on the body, right. So
anywhere.
With dermatillomania, so is it that they're picking like scabs, or can it just be a clean spot? There's no scab, there's nothing to pick, but they're just gonna pick skin, like healthy skin, or is it has to be a scab or something that they can remove, or a blemish? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. So typically there is some sort of little imperfection that they're kind of feeling. So it could be a little
pimple or something.
A pimple, yeah. And ironically with that, when someone with dermatillomania is, they have like a pimple and they're trying to get rid of the pimple, but then sometimes it ends up going beyond that, and they pick at it so much that it causes damage. And then when that area tries to heal, ironically, what they were trying to get rid of in this piece that we're talking about, the pimple, then it comes back as a scab and it starts the whole process over again,
Right.
because now there's a different type of blemish and it just creates even more trauma. So it's this vicious, again, repetitive,
Yeah.
the word repetitive, it's this vicious cycle, and,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to get out of.
I understand. I understand. So when it comes to needles, because there's skin damage, which can cause resistance, right? It can be difficult to get pigment to implant in skin that is, unhealthy or, damaged or traumatized in some sort of way. I lecture on needles. I'm a big advocate that, there's a big trend right now in the industry, single needle, single needle, single needle. Some trainers are teaching single needle on everything. That's all newbies are being taught. So would you concur that on a trick client where we're going to be meeting resistant skin, challenging skin, that a single needle and some of these smaller liners are not the most ideal needle? I mean, would you concur that like a 5 shader, a 7 shader, the larger shader configurations are going to be the best needle choice for these particular clients due to the fact they pick up much more pigment, they implant much more pigment, which is needed when we're working with skin that wants to resist pigment. We need to get as much, we need to kind of beat the skin, kind of outmaneuver the skin, if you will. So big needles picking up bigger amounts of pigment, implanting bigger amounts of pigment. And Jill, the larger needles do cause less trauma because the fact they implant more pigment, cover a larger surface area, we're in and out much quicker. So, do you agree?
So I will say this. Yes, I agree with you. And I'm going to kind of come back to my little thing in the beginning. This is why this is just a couple of my new needles from you, but I mean, my cabinet is full of every shape and size of needles possible, because especially when it comes to someone with trick, I might start off with one and get so much resistance that I have to switch gears after I start the procedure. And I definitely find that with my trick clients, my shader needles are my go-to. I typically always start with a 5 just to kind of get started and see what happens. And sometimes I'm doing whip shading. Sometimes I'm in there doing circular movements and things like that, or a combination. But shading needles really do tend to work well, just because there is so much trauma to the skin. And to your point too, Teryn, you're right. Like you do have to get as much pigment in there as possible. And the other thing too is, in terms of, if I fast forward into the healing part, the client is going to, whether we want to believe it or not, or think that it's going to happen or not, they're going to continue to pull in that area typically, right? They're not just going to stop. And I talk about that in the course too. Like, if it was so easy to just stop, we would all do it, but it's a mental health disorder. So we have to get enough pigment in there that's going to kind of set them up for long-term. But again, you have to have that really important conversation in the beginning about what's realistic and how often touch-ups might be needed, what they're going to look like for the first week or so. Because again, now we're talking, this is a high anxiety disorder, and there are comorbidity disorders that can come with it. So now you throw someone maybe who's already high anxiety with a really, really saturated looking eyebrow, and they might be freaking out on day 2 or 3.
Right.
So all of that, it has to be taken into consideration. But I definitely, to go back to your question, Teryn, I do really like the shader needles for the shading needles.
So that's your preferred needle? Yeah. I would imagine. I've had my fair share of trick clients. So, I've worked.
Sure you have.
and I still see them and refresh them. One thing that, and because, I've been doing this 22 years and, I've had, I've worked on a lot of trick clients, I knew your course would be super interesting to me. And I was surprised how much I was doing wrong with my trick clients. Yes, because one thing that you really pointed out, which really struck me, was don't ask. You talk a lot about proper grammar, how to properly speak to the BFRB client, what to say, what not to say. So, so I just want to highlight one aspect of that. You go into that deep on lots of different areas. One I would like to highlight is you advise not to tell your trick client, don't pick. Like, don't say that. And that's something that I did. I did until your course, I would tell them, I mean, in a kind, loving way, not in a scolding way, but, that don't pick, try not to pick, please don't pick. Like sit on your hands. I would just kind of have a little fun with it. And, but you advise not to advise that, not to say that to a trick client. Why is it offensive? Have I been offending like my trick clients all these years without even knowing it, or?
I wouldn't say it's offensive. It's just kind of a known thing. Like, we don't want to pick.
Yeah.
So, if we could quit picking that easy, then we wouldn't have these issues to begin with. So it's not that it's offensive. It just gives a different level of understanding is how I would look at it.
Okay.
As an artist, when we say, it's okay if you tell them not to pick, I'm sure I tell my trick clients not to pick at them. Instead of saying don't pick, what I will often say is the healing process is going to be a trigger. It's funny, I keep doing this with my hands. This is how I pull.
That's how you pull.
So I keep doing this, but I'm not drinking tea. I'm just doing my thing. But I will often tell them, instead of saying when they're healing, don't pick at them, that I would steer away from, just because that's an obvious thing for someone, most people, but especially someone with a trick, they know that they shouldn't pick even without permanent makeup. So what I often try to lean towards is the healing process is going to be a trigger for you. When that happens, if and when that happens, here are some things to do to try and get your hands busy, because that's the key. It's a mental thing. So when we have these impulses and it's like, I gotta pull, I'm telling you, when that shit enters your mind, it is really hard to steer away from it. And once you get started, it is like the floodgates have opened, and that's even harder. So it's easier and I'm saying not everybody is the same, but oftentimes it's easier for people with trichotillomania or even dermatillomania to try to divert their thought process before they start, because once they start, it's oftentimes game over.
So you personally, when you got your eyebrows tattooed, did you pick?
I did.
You did?
I was just going to share that story. So when I first had mine done, I guess it was about 5 years ago, I was at my second BFRB conference in Chicago. No, it was in St. Louis.
So and you were at a conference and you had your brows, so they were freshly tattooed while you were at a conference.
Yeah, they were probably done about 5 days before I went. And I wasn't, I know a lot of times it's, when people get their permanent makeup done, they're worried about being out in public while they're healing or whatever. As an artist and as a client at that time, I was proud of it. I was excited to go to the conference and show people, like, this is a great service. Find an artist in your area. I can help you find somebody if you need somebody. So I was all jacked up. And the second night of the conference, I was on, like I said, probably day 5, 6, somewhere around there of the healing. So they were getting kind of peely a little bit. I went to my hotel room and I had the urge and I was like, don't do it. I was staying in my room all by myself. And I started pulling. I actually took pictures of myself that night that I still have to this day.
Were you pulling the hair? Were you pulling the hair or picking scabs, or probably both? I would imagine if you're pulling hair, you're taking some scabs off at the same time.
So the healing was the trigger, but I'm going after the hair.
What about the healing was the trigger for you? Itchy. So because
and the texture, it's like, I mean,
texture.
If you talk to people with trick, they'll kind of go like this over their brows because it's like, that one feels funky, and then they just kind of get started. So people have different triggers.
So they're looking for. So they're great, like they're grazing their skin with their fingers, looking for any, like a bump or anything textured, anything raised, constantly scanning The skin.
Yes.
Okay.
Even looking in the mirror, if I see a hair that's like, my brows are coarse, so that's even, for me, that makes it even worse. When I wear mascara, I will pick my eyelashes and pull my eyelashes way more than when I don't wear mascara. That's why you don't see me really with any eye makeup on. Either I have so many gaps in my eyelashes that I think it looks stupid when I put mascara on because it just enunciates the the gaps, or the mascara is almost like kind of drying at the end of the day, and it's a trigger, and I'll start kind of like picking that mascara off, and before you know it, I'll pull out 6, 7 lashes at one time.
Yeah.
So so it's the actual healing part of what the trigger is it could be the texture of it, it could just be the look of it. Someone might look in the mirror and be like, ooh, that's tempting, I want to pick that or pull that out. So
right.
But for me, I pulled out, I think almost every single hair that I had grown back in my brow area, I pulled out that night at that conference.
Gotcha.
Everyone.
So, and you mentioned that we did an Instagram live together, and you mentioned that a lot of BFRB clients, they don't mention it in their client intake forms. Like they don't. So first, should PMU artists have that question on their intake form? Or do you have trichotillomania, dermatillomania, or any like BFRB? Should they have that question on their intake form? That's part one. And part two is, why do some BFRB clients do not check that they do have that mental disorder?
Sure, those are great questions. So the first part, should it be on the intake form? Yes, I think personally it should absolutely be on the intake form.
100%. That needs to be on every single permanent makeup artist intake form. Okay.
Yes, because what it's going to do is help you to understand how you proceed with the client. It's going to help you determine your needle selection, how you're going to talk to them about aftercare. Aftercare conversations are a little bit different for someone with trichotillomania than your traditional client. So it's going to help the artist to understand, okay, I have a trichotillomania client, so I'm gonna proceed a little bit differently, and I'm gonna do A, B, and C instead of X, Y, Z for this client. But that said, on the form, instead of it saying, do you have trichotillomania? A lot of people don't even know what that is. Even if they have it, they don't understand it. So I get a lot of clients who will come to me and say, I didn't even know that was a thing. I've been doing that since I was 7.
Wow.
I just thought I was weird, or I had no idea. So what happens is when you put it on your form is, do you have trichotillomania or a body focused repetitive behavior? They're literally going to be like, what the hell is she talking about? It's not going to make any sense. So what I would word it as is, I would put the actual term, because I'm big on proper language out of respect for this disorder. So I would absolutely put, do you have trichotillomania or dermatillomania? In parentheses behind each one, trichotillomania, hair pulling, dermatillomania, skin picking. And, kind of not necessarily define it, but give them some sort of description to go with it, because a lot of people wouldn't check the box because they just don't realize that they have a disorder.
Right.
And the reason for that, for a lot of the research I've done, and just in my marketing background and my business background and all kinds of stuff like that, but generational differences are huge. And you and I talked about this, Teryn, on the live for a couple weeks back too. But I'm the product of baby boomers, and baby boomers are kind of, again, generally speaking, kind of a sweep it under the rug. We don't air our dirty laundry in public. And not that my parents never said that to me, because unfortunately I was too ashamed and embarrassed to tell them that I was doing this since I was 11, because I didn't know what it was. And I was, like I said, ashamed and embarrassed. But a lot of times generational gaps or generational differences will dictate how those of us with these disorders respond or react to someone having that.
For sure.
And I think you even mentioned too, like you totally could understand that side of it, but it's a huge part. And I don't think that kind of stuff is talked about enough in terms of mental health disorders in general
No.
and things like this.
Absolutely not, and you're right, because there's a lot of shame attached, or there was. We're trying to break that now, right? We're trying to get rid of the shame, and
Right.
that was one reason I started talking openly about my mental, disorders. My OCD, my anxiety, and I think my anxiety, like my main issue, is probably the recycling thoughts, the recycling. I'm a manic thinker, and the recycling repetitive thoughts, which when I can't break that, definitely leads to anxiety and certainly depression, because some of the recycling thoughts, they can be destructive thoughts, negative thoughts, thoughts of, bad things happening, to you. They're not always positive thoughts.
Yes.
Now where I am with that is, as I've learned coping tools. I've had this sense, as little, Jill, and there was no help. It wasn't talked about. We didn't talk about trichotillomania. We didn't talk about anxiety. We didn't talk about depression. We didn't talk about bipolar. That generation didn't even talk about money.
No.
It's like that was a taboo subject. You don't talk about money. You keep your money private. You don't talk about money. And nowadays, I think we still have a long ways to go, but we've gotten a lot better. You have big, strong, successful athletes, and masculine, strong, talking about mental disorders and depression, and so we're lifting the veil of shame, and we're all starting to be more transparent. We're having open discussions about it, which is healthy. It's healthy
Yes.
for people. It's healthy for communities. It does, getting it off your chest and talking about it and feeling you have a community that you can relate to, shares a lot of the same struggles as you do, is super healing. I think just not feeling alone. Like
Yes.
and isolated with your own behaviors and thoughts and depression, right? Feeling like you have a community, you're not alone, is super healing. So I think maybe the fact that they don't know what it is, they don't even know they have it, is one reason they don't check it on the client form, and possibly shame and embarrassment that
Yes,
they have it, that they're not checking it on the form. Yeah. So I 100% agree with you. Everybody, listening to this podcast right now, all our listeners, if trichotillomania and dermatillomania are not on your forms, as soon as this podcast is over, pull your forms up, edit them, and add that.
Yes.
And there's other things, so many other things that you suggest and encourage PMU artists to not do, in order to be a good artist, a good pairing artist, the right artist for
Yes.
a trichotillomania or dermatillomania client, and even like an advocate, kind of. You know what I mean? When you connect with someone, especially someone doing a service, and you can talk about your disorder. There's a human connection. There's a human
Yes.
connection. So I would
Yes.
imagine it feels probably, you could answer this. It probably feels really, really good and beautiful for a BFRB client to choose an artist that understands the disorder, speaks properly about it, uses proper grammar, has compassion, has knowledge, and can guide them through the tattooing procedure and the healing procedure. That just must feel like, God, right? It must feel so good.
It does feel good.
Yeah.
It does feel good. And there's another level to that too, where as artists, it really positions us in another level of kind of empowerment and confidence in being able to help and serve clients who have BFRBs, because we already are good at what we do, right? We know that we can help a lot of people, but when we can speak the language and talk the talk and walk the walk with those clients, almost like in hand with them, instead of just throwing them out the door, it really throws a whole new level of trust. And those clients are going to go, they have BFRB communities. There are Facebook groups. There are, the conferences I go to, there's hundreds of people there that have my disorder. And there's a lot of connection, just like we have connections in, cancer survivor groups and alopecia groups and all these other things. The same thing is out there for trick and derm. So when you position yourself as a PMU artist who really understands and wants to help clients with trick and derm out of a place of compassion and really wanting to help, it really will, the success will follow. If you're doing it for the right reasons, the success will follow, just like anything else that we do.
Right. And I'm going to take that one step further. So so this it's not really a procedural course. So so there might be some students or artists out there perusing courses that might overlook this course, thinking, well, this isn't going to increase my clientele. This is not going to increase my skill level, and they might pass it by. And I would dare say, no, don't do that. I think this can absolutely make you a much better artist, right? Especially for that particular client. It can increase your clientele when you're, right? Because as you said, in your course, they do get a certificate of training that they can proudly, post in their studio, post it on their Facebook page. They can go onto their Facebook page, their Instagram, their bio, their website, and dedicate just a small little paragraph that they, on their own accordance, took the initiative to take a BFRB course and understand the trick and derm client, and post their certificate. And as you said, they can, and people in their community will come across that and feel comfortable reaching out. And as you said, they can go into Facebook groups, like there's mummy groups, like you said, there's mom groups, there's groups for trick and derm.
There's a group for everything.
Yeah, they can join these groups.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. So, right? I know. I'm peeling eggs, for cripe's sakes. All that. Yeah, but it's true. But they can go into these groups, become members of these groups, and introduce themselves as a PMU artist that took a course and educated themselves on BFRBs. And all this stuff. So absolutely, it's just going to increase your network of clientele and cause you to I think it causes you to stand out amongst your peers in your city, in your area, for sure. And because I think all of us are working on trick clients, whether they know it or not. I mean, right? They're seeking our services because we're, it's just so beneficial what we can do for a trick and a derm client, right? Yes. So beneficial.
And also, in addition to what you're saying, even the statistic around it is 1 in 20 people have a BFRB. 1 in 20 is a staggering number. That is actually more common than anorexia. It's more common than a lot of the disorders that we at least hear about, even if we're not, working on those types of clients every day in our studios. But 1 in 20 people is a huge number. That's like a child in every single classroom. And when you really break that down and you think about how many clients you're doing in a week, I'm sure most people do close to, 10 to 20 or whatever amount they're doing in a week, depending on their schedules. But statistically, you're working on at least one a week, which equates to quite a few a year. So again, and then those clients are going to go and tell their friends or their network of people who have trick or derm, and it's just going to kind of blow up from there. But there's a lot of people who have it, and researchers believe that number is actually higher, which I do agree with. It is most common in females, which is another point of permanent makeup. We are in a female dominant industry. Yes, we serve the male population, but the reality is we are in a female dominant industry in permanent makeup. So the majority of people with trick is female and derm. The onset for dermatillomania is actually usually around the age of 19. So it hits at a later rate. Trichotillomania, the onset is usually adolescence, like 9 to 13. So you're really, and dermatillomania is is going to carry and trick most commonly into adulthood. But researchers believe that more men have it. It's just we're talking about that belief that generational differences we were talking earlier about, Teryn, with not talking about things and you kind of sweep it under the rug. Guys kind of have this,
For sure.
oh, I'm fine, nothing's wrong with me. I'm not going to talk about that. So researchers believe that it is more common in men too. And actually, I have had quite a few men with trichotillomania reach out to me for doing their eyebrows, and that's a whole nother part of it too.
Right.
But, it's a very, very high number of people who have trich. And one thing that I should say BFRB, because trich and derm, so 1 in 20 is a big number. But the other thing too that I wanted to mention, it is talked about in much more detail in the course, but in terms of this being a mental health disorder and some of these comorbidities that go with it, it's so important to understand those as a PMU artist, because when we have more knowledge about how this is going to affect this person emotionally or mentally and physically in the process after they leave our studio, it's only going to help us be more prepared before they even enter. For example,
and more patient.
Right. So statistically, or I guess scientifically, there's a lot of science that is built into this course. We're talking about the skin and all that kind of stuff, but let's talk about menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Women are more prone to pull, I believe it's a week before their menstrual cycle.
Right.
So when you're talking about timing out, if you know you have a client with trich, and no, of course you're not going to put on your form like, when do you get your menstrual cycle? But you can have these conversations, and you might be able to reduce those impulses and those repetitive urges from that client if you can plan their permanent makeup service around that high point of when they're more likely to pull. So this course isn't just like the simplicities of focused repetitive behaviors and, oh, well, I can Google that and look that up and whatever. No, we're getting into the physical part, the emotional part, the mental part.
Right.
How can you plan ahead? What does it look like during the procedure? And what does that look like after, as support for this client, and not just tossing them out the door and saying, don't pick.
Absolutely.
There's so much involved in the course that is so different than what artists have seen in courses for procedural videos. And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the content in this course.
I and you should be. I am too. I'm really proud to have this course. I knew it was a little niche course, and it might be a little bit more challenging getting the PMU industry to understand why this course is so important. Because like I said, it's not a procedure course. I think a lot of students out there are looking for a procedures course to, level up their tattooing skills, or, how can they increase their clientele and earn more income. But this course is equally as important. It sets up both the PMU artist and the BFRB client for success. So with that, I just wanted to segue and mention some of the things that this course includes. You did touch on that, but you go into correct terms and grammar, especially the what not to say. So I thought that was really important, because no matter what your client, when we're talking to our clients in a procedure rooms, whether it's in a consultation, you want to close the deal, the whole, right? I mean, you want a 99.9% closing rate. You want to close that deal, and you want to convert consultations into paid procedures. So if you're consulting with BFRBs, and all that proper grammar, and you know how to professionally and compassionately speak to a BFRB client during a consultation, you are going to close that deal 100%. So you go into that. You also go in, like you mentioned, the science behind the BFRBs, which I think is super interesting and educational. You go into how it affects the skin, the structure, and the state of the skin, which ends up affecting us, and implantation, healed results. You go into that. You profile several case studies and you have some BFRB clients on your course talking on video, which I thought was beautiful and well done. You go into, like I said, you go into the consultation, you go into the aftercare, and you have a live model that you tattoo, that you narrate through. And there's so much more to this course. That was just some of the highlights. So a very, very well done course. And I wanted to say that although this course is geared towards the PMU artist, because you do talk about implantation, you talk about aftercare, that's where it's like super geared towards the PMU artist. But I also feel strongly, after taking your course, I also felt this course would be very beneficial to hairdressers that have clients, to lash extension girls, to estheticians, to people doing Botox and injectables. Anybody with a female clientele in the beauty industry could absolutely benefit from this course. Absolutely. You know, I mean, 100%. All right. So is there anything that we didn't touch on that we want to touch on before we close out?
No, not necessarily. I do want to just make one comment about the interviews that I have in the course that you were just mentioning, Teryn. So one of them is actually not a client of mine. The other ones are. Her name is Heather. She's in a different state. Her and I connected because we both have Trick. She found me online. We've never met in person. We have each other's cell phones. We talk to each other all the time about our disorder. She's a brow and a lash puller just like I am. She actually is a makeup artist, not permanent makeup, but a makeup artist. And when she was 19, she started pulling out her brows and lashes when she was really young. When she was 19, her mom said, let's go get your eyeliner and your brows tattooed because you don't have any brows and lashes, so we'll get it tattooed on there. And they went to a local permanent makeup place. This would have been like 15 years ago, something like that, 12, 15 years ago. And what's really awesome in Heather's interview is she talks about what she wished she would have known as the client going into that studio. She never thought in her mind, does this artist understand what I have? Does this artist understand my challenges? Does this artist understand that the healing process is potentially going to trigger me to pull? She didn't even think to ask any of that stuff. And when I reached out to her and asked her, hey, we've been talking for a few years now. Would you be interested in doing this for my course and being a part of this course? She was so excited. And what she said was, if I only would have known what to ask when I went, I think it would have been different, because now she's going through the process of removal. She actually reached out to me to see, she was going to drive to me to do lift. And I was like, honey, there's going to be people more local. So we kind of worked through that whole process.
Right.
But
so Jill,
not that she got a botch job, she just didn't know what she didn't know. And if you do that in the reverse, and as an artist, we're able to
ask the right questions.
Understand this is what you need to know. Even if somebody has Trick or Derm and they say, oh my God, I don't think I should do it. That's okay. That's okay. Our job isn't to try to, coax anybody into doing it. But if they have the information, the knowledge, and the tools to make those decisions, that also is success on our part as artists. Yeah,
and I'll just say as an artist, and I'm I may have felt this, one or two times, is as an artist, you can get frustrated and impatient with a Trick client if you don't fully understand it. And I think very early on in my career, when I started working on Trick clients, I didn't understand it. And you could get frustrated because, we do our heart and our soul into our work. We spend, a couple of hours, and then they go and they pick it off. We have to do a touch up. So it can cause frustration. I mean, understandably, an artist, but I think what this course is going to do, it's going to help the artist because the artist is now going to understand the psyche, the psychology of the trick and derm client. They're going to understand the client. It's going to, it helps with that. You no longer feel frustration, and you don't get annoyed. You don't lose your patience. Those emotions are replaced with respect, kindness, grace, understanding, right? Because I would hope, I think most people getting into permanent makeup is because we want to be of service. We want to be of service and help people. And I don't think it's the responsibility of the trick or derm client to walk into a permanent makeup studio and know all the right questions to ask a PMU artist. I don't think that's the responsibility of a BFRB client. I think that's the responsibility of a PMU artist. If you take what you do seriously, right?
Yes.
Then you're responsible. You're responsible for knowing all the right questions, what to ask, what conversations to talk about, what to bring up, and what to educate each client on, depending on that client's situation. And this includes BFRB clients. So,
and that is exactly right. And that's exactly what I meant by getting in front of it. So
right.
Heather was saying, I wish I would have known
right.
to look for this or ask.
Right.
This. But
after this course,
if the artist would have been in front of it, then everybody would have been
happy.
On the same page.
On the same page, happy, great results, even if it takes 2 or 3 sessions because they're picking. I mean, the journey is a lot better, a lot happier.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So so we're, where are we in time? Are we about an hour?
Yeah.
We're about an hour? Okay, so we got one little thing I do want to touch on, which I thought was funny, is Olivia, we were researching BFRBs, and one, you know what I'm going to say, right? I got to talk about this. But, we're probably going to use this as a little clip on like TikTok or something, because this will be a great clip. But one thing that we learned was what falls under the umbrella of BFRB. Of course, there's trick and derm. We just spent an hour talking about that. But nose picking. So it can.
Not everybody picks the
nose.
Well,
that was my thing, right? I mean, immediate. I'm like, oh my God, I got BFRB. I mean, who the hell don't pick their nose? So like, 1 pick a day, or are you like not on the spectrum? Is it like 10 picks a day, or is it how far you insert the finger? It always takes me back to the Jerry Seinfeld, Seinfeld. I'm a big, huge Seinfeld fan. We have a lot of listeners that are Seinfeld fans. I reference Seinfeld a lot. And there was this episode where he stopped at a light, like I don't know what's going to show this way, and his finger's like here, and he's itching. But a woman he's dating pulls up side, and it looks like he's picking, and he turns and he's like, no, it wasn't a pick. It wasn't a pick. It was an itch. It's fantastic. But I thought you don't go into nose picking on your course.
Not a trickster in that
Yeah.
Episode.
I thought that was great.
It does. And yes, we can have fun with that. It is part of, it does fall into the category.
Well, it's picking, right? I think a lot of little kids have BFRB, right? I mean, I got a little, my little godson, he's always got his finger up his nose, picking the oogies
kids
out.
have fingers everywhere. They're picking everywhere.
Good Lordy. So let's do something for our listeners. I always like to, try to do something for our listeners. So we're going to do a discount on your course, because I want to give people an incentive to get on this course, Jill. They need to take this course.
Yes.
So we're going to do 10%. What's the course? What's the fee on the course? We priced it at, was it $249? Do you remember?
$247.
$247 is priced at $247, I believe. And so we're going to do, so I thought it was priced super fair, great price. And we're going to give 10% off. So everybody that downloads this podcast, listen to this podcast, go to girlzinktraining.com. The coupon code is going to be Jill, Jill, 10. So put that in your coupon and right by your checkout. You're going to get 10% off Jill's course. We'll keep that code active and running for about a week. And in addition to that, everybody that takes your course using that coupon, because we can track it. We got a really sophisticated dashboard. We're going to track it. So every single person that takes your course, Understanding BFRBs, using that 10% coupon code Jill10, we want them to post a reel. It has to be on their feed so it doesn't disappear. Forget the stories. Stories disappear. We want a feed post of them taking your course, tag Girlz Ink Studio, and we're going to pick a winner out of those feed posts, and we're going to send them 3 of your favorite loaded colors by LI Pigments, which is Cheatin' Heart, Maverick, and Mustang. So so not only do they get 10% of your course, we're looking for some fun feed posts, right? Maybe they could do some gifts of, I don't know, nose pickers.
I was just gonna say, they could
Right.
be picking it out.
Yeah, we're gonna pick our favorite feed post. Yeah, or reel. It could be a regular feed post. Yeah, it can be a picture. It can be a reel. It can be a little video, but it has to be on their Instagram feed. They need to tag Girlz Ink and hashtag Girlz Ink Studio, and and some fun little gifts, whatever they can do to get our attention as best feed post. Like I said, we're going to send them out 3 of your favorite colors: Maverick, Cheatin' Heart, and Loaded. So, hey Jill, I am going to say goodbye to you. Don't go away. Once I close out, I'm going to come back and talk to you. Okay, so I want to thank you for taking time, coming on here. First of all, thank you for having the courage to speak openly about your own personal journey in disorder with BFRB. I know that takes a lot of courage. You've been your own daughter has trichotillomania now. You're thinking maybe she's going there. So
she's pretty young, but I watch my kids with a pretty close eye with how hyper aware I am.
I bet you do. And so thank you for having the courage to speak about it and entering the PMU industry and putting this course together. It's a fantastic course, and so I thank you very, very much. And I'm very honored to have it on our platform. So thank you for choosing myself and Girlz Ink as the platform to showcase this beautiful course.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be a part of your academy. I've been a big supporter of Girlz Ink and a follower of you and everything that you've done ever since I got into this industry. You've been a role model, a mentor to me, whether or not you even realized it. I feel very, very honored and grateful that you also see the value in this. And I knew if anybody would understand the value of this kind of content, it'd be you. So thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful.
Very welcome. I absolutely did, and I think hundreds, if not thousands, of other PMU artists are also going to see the value of this course once they take it. Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. So that was another Zoom session with Jill Ullmer on a Tatter-a-fact. And just want to remind you that go to our YouTube, Tatter-a-fact YouTube page, where you can watch all our Tatter-a-fact episodes. You can also stream us on Spotify, iTunes, Podcast Addict, and Buzzsprout. And please leave your comments here. This is where we're going to run the contest, right? Yeah. And on your Instagram page, please leave your comments on this episode, what you thought about this episode. Once you take the course, we'd love to hear your comments on the course. And I'm going to leave you with a great little quote. My quote for today is, "There are riches in niches." So appropriate for today's podcast, talking about Jill Ullmer and understanding BFRB's new course on the Girlz Ink Academy, because this is a little niche, and they are riches in niches, people. There certainly are. So thank you again. We'll see you next time on Tatter-a-fact.